And we're now joined by Francis Ngannou's coach and the head coach at Xtreme Couture, Eric Nicksick. And Eric, we talk to fighters on this program all the time about this point in fight week. How do the emotions of a coach stack up now that we can, if you're good at math, count the hours until showtime?
Yeah, I think you get those ups and downs quite a bit, and that's going to be natural. But for me, it's just kind of just focusing on the task at hand, taking one step at a time. We're once you get into quarantine, you get into lockdown, you kind of just really get a focus on the fight at hand, and just kind of get after it. That's kind of what the fight week vibe feels like.
It's rare to see in a rematch a fighter who lost the first fight somewhat comprehensively be the favorite, but such is the public confidence in Francis and all that he's done in the interim. How do you capture that confidence in your fighter without letting that pendulum swing too far?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I don't understand how he's the favorite either. At times, the first fight went a certain way, and I think just because Francis has that X factor where he's able to put anybody to sleep at any point, and you combine that with a 25-minute fight, he has that availability to him that he can just land that one punch. So, but with the first fight and the way the first fight went, I think it's pretty evident that we had a lot of things we had to get better at. So, I think that's kind of been my primary focus is just not just going to be a walk in the park and you're going to go in there and be able to hit a home run. Is that what you want? Absolutely. But, Stipe Miocic is one of the best to ever do it. So we have to prepare for that 25-minute grind.
In your preparation for this rematch, how much have you referenced that first fight directly with Francis?
Quite a bit, and to be honest with you, Phil, it's one of my best sources of information. I wasn't there for the first fight. So being able to talk to Francis and get an understanding of what he went through in that camp, some of the things that he saw firsthand with Stipe, he was in the cage with him. Those experiences I think are invaluable really from the source himself is Francis Ngannou. So sitting down and be able to watch it and then pick his brain and then try to kind of formulate the game plan and understanding of what we want to try to do. And on the flip side of that coin, Stipe Miocic has gotten a lot better in my opinion since that fight as well. So there's a lot of new things I think in wrinkles that he's added to his game since then.
Yeah, standing across from Daniel Cormier three times as he has in the interim will do that. But in Francis's last four fights, we've seen four wins, four knockouts totaling 2 minutes, 42 seconds. Not a lot of sample size for fans and media to see him improving. Behind the scenes, if you had to pick one attribute, where has he improved most since he's been on this win streak?
I would say his willingness to wrestle. He hasn't missed a practice, and it's been amazing to have him in the room wrestling. It's actually, I think now it's kind of turned into one of his strong suits and one of his strengths. He loves to be topside offensive wrestling, and I mean, I think a lot of you can imagine having Francis Ngannou on topside half guard trying to elbow your head in. So it's a pretty scary sight. It's something I think that he enjoys to do because it adds another element to his game. And this is MMA, man. Like you have to be able to evolve and you have to be able to broaden your horizons. The way we always kind of talked about it was like, hey, look, if the one tool you have is the hammer, everything looks as a nail, right? Abraham Maslow. So we have to add more tools to his tool shed.
Well, the first time these guys fought, it was in the standard size Octagon in Boston, January 2018. This is in the smaller Apex Octagon. You take it in a couple meters each side. Who does the smaller Octagon favor in this head-to-head matchup?
Definitely the fans. It's nonstop action. The moment the bell rings, you're two steps in, you're on the guy. You're two steps out, you're on the barrier. So I think center control octagon, making sure that you kind of plant a flag in the middle of the canvas is very imperative for both fighters. I think kind of whoever controls that middle is going to really control that fight. So, in the heavyweight division, 4-ounce gloves, finding the guy right in the middle, man, it can be advantageous for both fighters. For a guy who wants to strike and cut the corners, or a guy who wants to try to get on your legs. It can really benefit both guys. It's just kind of the matter of how they execute it.
Yeah, I mean, guys like me in a suit, we like to flex when we notice something like that. But in your preparation, how much does that smaller octagon really impact the fight camp and how you get your fighter ready?
Well, one of the nice things for us at Extreme Couture, we actually have two cages, and one of those cages, which we never found a much use for until all of a sudden now we're finding at the Apex, is that smaller cage. So we have I think it's a 24 foot, so it's damn near the same size as the cage of the Apex. So that cage now gets a lot of use because we have so many guys fighting over the Apex, and it's nice because we're able to prepare in there and get a real understanding of what those dimensions look like. And it was we saw that really evident when Paul Felder fought RDA. Paul never got to train in a cage like that, so right away when Paul came to fight on short notice, I put him in that cage because I was like, hey, this is what it's going to feel like. It's 2 steps in and 2 steps out. So having that availability of that small cage in our own gym has been invaluable service for us.
Francis is 10-2 in the UFC. 10-0 when the fight's less than 10 minutes. He's been 0-2. The 2 losses are when he saw a third rounder or later. How reflective is that stat, I guess, for his likeliest route to victory against Stipe, in that, perhaps the longer the fight goes, it may favor somebody who's been to those championship rounds successfully before?
I mean, I think that's a fair estimate. It just is knowing that, like, this has been one of his on paper, weaknesses, has been getting him into deep water. So those are the things that we had to address. You have to address, right? Like, you don't really have that availability just to go knock everybody out. So to be able to kind of refocus your training camp on the cardio and the wrestling and all those elements that I think that, like, might maybe have exposed him in the past, have really helped him and to his own admission, which is even better as a coach. It's not some guy just harping on you to get better at something and you're getting resistance back. He's the one that wants to implement this stuff moving forward because he understands that if we win this title, these are the things that we're going to have to get better at down the line too when you fight the guys like John Jones and the Volkanovski or Volkovs and people like that in the heavyweight division. They're going to try to find other routes to nullify your power. So just to get better in all those areas, I think is very important for us. And I think Francis has lived up to that task.
Tell us about Sicko Saturdays and what role those have played in getting him ready for those championship rounds.
Oh, Sicko Saturdays. Yeah. So we started those a long time ago. It was kind of a handful of us. And what we wanted to do just was really to emulate a fight on the Saturday. We set up stations and we do things to try to get the heart rate up, but also, moreover, so you can understand instructions while you're duressed. Your coach is yelling at you. He's sending you spot to spot. And they kind of really became popular, I think, amongst the upper echelon fighters because they understood that, like, hey, these are cardio rounds that are going to incentivize my game, and I understand that I could push a pace. So, we started adding those in, and then Francis did, I think, his like first couple with me, and I wouldn't say he liked them, but he understood like what we were trying to get after, and then all of a sudden, it just became part of his regimen. And I think that's like most of the guys at Xtreme Couture. They understand that service is for them to get better. We don't want to just win fights. We want to demoralize people, and being able to work that hard and know that you can push that type of pace, I think gives them a little more confidence.
One of the privileges of covering this sport pre-pandemic is oftentimes guys like me will be standing right next to the fighters right before they make the walk to the octagon. What is your message going to be to Francis in that stage, the last chance you have to get to chat with him before he challenges for the heavyweight belt?
That's a great question, Phil, and I think that's kind of ran through my head quite a few times. But to be honest with you, I just know him and the way he approaches the fight night. He's one of the most calm, collected individuals I've ever been with. Sometimes I'm like, man, we got to wake this guy up. Like he's almost kind of falling asleep. But I think that's understanding who and what your fighter needs and who they are, kind of deep down when they walk out. Some guys need to get hyped up, some guys don't. And he kind of has that, just like that shark mentality where it's just slow, ominous, and then it goes and then he hits you with it. So I think I'm just gonna make sure to tell him to enjoy the moment. I think take it all in. I think for most of us we get that tunnel vision and we don't really take a look around and take a deep breath and smell the roses and take it all in. So he's earned that right, and I think just go in there and have some fun. I think that's the most important thing for him.
To many across the MMA business, he was the coach of the year last year. Eric Nicksick, coach at Xtreme Couture and coach of Francis Ngannou, who challenges for the heavyweight belt this weekend. Eric, thanks so much and all the best at UFC 260.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.